What is a God mode build? Does adding more blue core armor to your build makes you feel safe? Or is it adding more protection from elite on your build makes you feel even safer? But remember, the red and purple NPCs are still gonna do the same amount of damage to you. Now, since we are taking more damage from the enemies nowadays anyway, that's gonna hurt a little bit more. And what about armor on kill? See, it's always a good thing to have armor on kill, right? Because as long as you're getting the kill, you're gonna get the heal. But that's the pro and the con of an armor on kill, because you need to get the kill to get the heal. If you don't, well, you know what's gonna happen. Now, what about regen? Regen's always good, but then you have to rely building onto it, right? See, wrong. When you're using Memento's backpack, which gives you a crazy amount of regen, which is 3%, but you need to get 30 kills. When you're only relying on Memento, like your build is solely just relying on Memento's regen, that's a problem, because you need to get that 30 kills to get that trophy so you can fill up the stacks, and then you have 3% of regen. And sometimes, or most of the times, people would die trying to build up the stacks. Now, if you manage to build up the stacks without dying, that's good. And now you can't fast travel to any safe house whatsoever, because if you do, you're going to lose the stacks and you have to build it up again. That's a problem. Like, how many times you actually build up the full Memento stacks and then you forgot and fast travel to a safe house and now you lost all your stacks? I mean, I myself, when I'm playing with my friend, I just told him to just fast travel to a safe house and get out so I can fast travel on him. So that way I can keep my stacks. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do. But don't worry, I do have a build that can regenerate your armor like crazy and do great amount of damage all at the same time without have to relying on Memento. So, interested? Let me show you. So this is the build over here right now, as you can see. Now, before you judge me in the comment section, let me tell you, there's literally no build up to this build, like regen. Like whatever you see here, you get. Simple as that. And it's a point and shoot build. Like all you have to do is go to the content, whatever you're doing, whether it's a heroic mission or control point or whatever, just go there, point and shoot. You take damage, you get even more regen. That's it. It's pretty much like the Nomad feeling from Division 1. If you ever played that game, then you'll know. It's just passively regenerating your armor at all times. There's literally no build-up. So I just wanted to clear that first. Now, first of all, the specialization that I'm using is actually Fireball specialization, because that gives me the Striker Shield. Striker Shield does provide more damage to your build. Like if you have the mods equipped on it, you're going to get 12% of damage bonus. Now, that's per enemy. So if you have more enemies in front of you, let's say you have 2 enemies, that's 24% of extra weapon damage, which is pretty sweet by having the shield on. And you should be having the shield on because, you know, our gear wants us to have the shield on. Now, it also gives you that armor kit, which regenerates your armor like crazy, but I don't think you will need that, to be honest, with this build amount of regen you have. Plus, also, it's like a mini Hunter's Fury. This build is kind of like a mini Hunter's Fury, which is the armor and kill thing and the health on kill. Like you have armor and kill on this build. You also got 30% of health on kill from the Fireball specialization. So if you ever reach a situation where you're super, super low, then you can, if you get a kill, then you will get that healing from that as well. So that's kind of nice as well. Now, let's talk about the weapons here and which weapon did I choose and what you can choose if you don't have these weapons as well. Like there's a bunch of alternatives you can use. I'll give you those alternatives. Don't worry about that. Now, I love using the Cold Relations SMG because, you know, it gives you a crazy amount of crit damage, the perfect strain. Now, you could say, what about, you know, Killer Talon or like Perfect Killer with the Dark Winter? I wouldn't recommend Dark Winter on this because it has a very high RPM. That's good. Base damage is low though. And it'll struggle taking down enemies with one clip. I have tried it. It didn't work. So that's why I'm choosing these weapons here. But you can also use a SIG MPX with the Killer Talon. You can absolutely do that. But then I prefer Strained, or at least Perfect Strain in this situation here, because it gives us 80% of crit damage. And it doesn't have a condition. That's what we're going for. We don't have to rely on anything. With Killer, you have to rely on getting a crit kill for it to proc. And it's not going to happen 100% of the time. You're never going to proc Killer back to back to back to back to back all the time. Sometimes you will miss it. Sometimes you may not get that crit kill. But with this, you're always getting the crit damage. As long as you fire your weapon and hitting your targets, you're going to get that crit damage build up. So I prefer this. But if you prefer Killer, please, by all means, use Killer. You don't have to complain about it in the comment section. If you want to use that, you can use that. It's okay. But I'm staying with the Cold Relation. I love using this weapon. Now, the secondary weapon, I did chose the Backfire here. Now, the reason why I chose the Backfire, because not only does more damage than anything that I'm going to put over here, but it's kind of fun. There is a synergy with it. See, Backfire does bleed you. We know that. And people hate that. I know. I understand that. Last time, I made a Backfire build, which was the, you know, no bleed. So if you want to prefer that, you can use that. If you don't like bleeding with Backfire, you can use that build. That also has regen, but it's also, again, there's Memento in there. And then you have no bleed, of course. With this, you will bleed, but only till you reach to the max stacks. The moment you get max stacks, you're no longer going to bleed. And that's the fun part of the backfire. But if you do bleed, that's okay. That's actually a good thing. Yes, bleeding is a good thing. Even though your screen becomes completely red and it's annoying, but at that point, you are regenerating. Because when you bleed, you're actually going to trigger even more regeneration for you. Yes, because bleeding is pretty much a self-damage that you're doing with the backfire and actually triggers a synergy with our gear set. Now, speaking of our gear set, we're using Foundry here, as you can see. It's a tank gear set, we know, but I am using it as a DPS way. And you probably noticed that I do have quite a lot of armor cores that is red here, like 3, for example. But I still have very high armor. The reason why I have very high armor, like 1.7 million here, still doing good damage, because in a normal build, if you build it like this, you're probably sitting at 1.5 million. But I have 1.7 because Foundry does give you more total armor. Plus, I also do have some expertise on my gear, so that's giving total armor. So if you're a new player, returning player, and if you're like wondering how does he have that much armor with this less amount of blue core, that's why, because Foundry gives us total armor, and also I have some expertise here that's increasing my total armor. So I'm getting that armor there to 1.5 million, because more armor is more regen, right? Now, as for the Foundry, if you're a new player, don't know, well, it gives you crazy amount of regen. That's what I can say. Like, it got buffed, by the way, not in this season, but the previous one. So the makeshift repair reached 25%. It was, I think, 20% before. So they buffed it by 5 more percent. So that's 25% armor coming back over 10 seconds. That's a pretty aggressive armor regen right there. Now, it used to have 3% armor regen like a long time ago, but they made it 1%. It's just fine, whatever. You also get 50% shield health, which is nice. So we'll get a very tanky shield for us. Also, like I said, the total armor there, that is increasing your, armor. That's why we have so much armor, right? And I chose weapon damage. By the way, remember, core attributes always armor for Foundry. So you have to find something with the crit damage here already to change the core armor to weapon damage there. That's pretty much what I did. So yeah, we have weapon damage, and crit chance on our mask. And for our holster, we have weapon damage, crit damage. For our knee pads, we have armor and crit damage. Now I'm using 3 pieces of Foundry here because we have a ninja. Yes, ninja bike messenger backpack. This is what's making our 3-piece of Foundry a 4-piece of Foundry. So we're getting the full makeshift repair buff here. And this is no longer bugged, by the way, like it was before, a long time ago. So you don't have to worry about swapping your pieces. It works out of the box pretty much. Now, for my chest piece, I chose a Bellstone piece here because that gives us 1% armor regen. Plus the 2 piece, because of ninja, gives us 10% armor on kill. I mean, it's just 10%. If you use gunner, you'll get 20%. But I would say just stick with the firewall specialization. You don't have to use gunner here. His firewall gives you the striker shield, which does increase your damage by a lot. So it's actually important there. So I chose Obliterate Talent here and not Intimidate because we don't have bonus armor. With Obliterate, it's always active, 20% of weapon damage there. And easy to activate because we have tons of crit chance on our build. And for the chest piece attributes, you can see I have a crit damage, crit chance, and crit damage mod. Now, for the gloves, I actually chose a Golden Gear gloves because 1%, 1 piece of Golden Gear gives you 10% of status effect, which we don't care, to be honest. But what we do care is the armor regen here, which is 1.5%. That is nice. Like, if you see right now, I actually have 3.5% of armor regen with this build, which is, I know, just a little bit better than Memento. You could always say that, what if I just use 4 pieces of Foundry and slap in a Memento? That's good. Yes, it is good. But then you have to get the stacks on the Memento. If you're okay with it, by all means, use that. Plus, I already made that build on my channel a long time ago, probably like a year ago. That mode build, like, I think it's a year ago. So if you want to make that, you can use it. It's totally fine. But I'm just trying here with this variant where we're getting the regen right at up front. We don't have to rely on Memento's regen buff. We can get it right here, right now, whatever regen. But that is 3.5% regen, by the way. With Memento, if you add it, it's going to be 5%, which is better. But then with that Memento stacks, you're only going to have 2% when you're building up the stacks, that is. So that's why I said that this is actually better in a way. But when you build up Memento stacks, that will be better. Yes, I'm saying it's always going to be better. But you have to build it up, okay? You have to keep that in mind. But don't forget, Foundry gives us more regen, right? The makeshift repair, that gives us more regen. So even though we have 3.5% of regen on this build, we're getting even more regen when we get shot. And you can actually trigger the Foundry's regen with your Backfire SMG, like when you're building up the stacks of Backfire, because when you do build up full stacks on a Backfire, you're no longer going to bleed, right? But when you're building up the stacks, you're going to bleed when you reload. And that time, you're going to trigger the makeshift repair regen because you're bleeding yourself, you're damaging yourself. And as long as you damage yourself, it's going to trigger the makeshift repair. Now, that's not a huge deal. And that's not a synergy that you should rely on. You're gonna regenerate your armor with makeshift repair easily when the enemies shoot at you, and they always shoot at you. So you don't have to worry about that. Just when they shoot at you, put your shield on, and then you'll get insane amount of healing. Like it's stupid amount of regen right there with Foundry. So you don't have to worry about that at all. But we do get the damage from Backfire though. That's a good thing. Like 200% crit damage. So we're getting like 340 plus crit damage on this build with the Backfire. So if you don't have the Backfire, you can absolutely use the high-end weapons like Sig MPX with Killer Talent, Strain Talent. You can use all that. Just don't use any high fire rate weapon because you're probably not going to be one-clipping your targets at that point. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. I haven't tried it. I don't know yet because I felt like that's not going to be a good thing. I chose the Backfire because it does give you more damage. If you use Sig MPX, that will be a good choice. If you have the apartment, you can use that. Dark Winter is still viable though. You can still use it. But anything else than Dark Winter, like Ouroboros and stuff, that's not going to be good. Don't use Ouroboros in this build. That's all I can say. So yeah, overall, that's a pretty solid build. Now, if I show you my stats here, you can see I've already capped out my crit chance. And I also have a very good amount of crit damage. With Backfire, that's going to go 344% crit damage if you build up full stacks on Backfire. So that's kind of crazy as well. If I show you my defensive stats here, you can see I have armor and kill. I got armor regen there. I also got the health on kill there at the same time. Not so much in the hazard protection thing because this is not a hazard protection build. But don't worry, as long as you get Backfire stacks to full, you will not bleed. If you're using Backfire as your primary weapon. If you're using any high end, then you don't have to worry about that, of course, at all. So yeah, it's pretty good. When the makeshift repair hits, that's a lot of regen. That seriously is a lot of regen. You're passively regenerating your health all the time. You're getting shot, you're regenerating. You're bleeding yourself and getting shot all the same time. You're still surviving. Like, seriously, the enemies are shooting at you. Backfire is bleeding you, and you're still fine with it. So give it a try if you haven't already. It's fairly simple and easy to make. And the damage itself, you can see in the footage, is pretty good. It's a really good amount of damage for a solo player. Anything above 500k is a good damage, but we're hitting beyond that, of course. And that's a really solid amount of damage. So give it a try. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Leave a like if you like the video. And subscribe if you want to see crazy stuff like this in the future as well. And that also helps my channel. So, do that. It's free. You can always change your mind later. And I will see you guys in the next one. Till then, peace.